My name is Andrew. Welcome to our live stream, our weekly live stream, the Forkless Cafe, where you come for your weekly DLT insights. My name is Andrew. I'm Hedera Hashgraph social media manager, and I'm joined by my friend and colleague Sharon, who's going to be managing the live chat for us. So if you're joining us live, feel free to jump in a comment or a question. We typically have guests that join us every week, but unfortunately this week we have run into some technical problems. So this week we are going to shy away from including our guest, unfortunately. I think this is actually the first time we're not going to be including a guest, which is a little unfortunate because we obviously love participating with the community on our weekly live stream. And yeah, for some reason, the live stream gods were just not on our side this time. So let's get going. So Forkless Cafe is our weekly live stream. I'm going to get the disclaimer out of the way here first. Just adjusting my view here. So our objective is to share interesting news in the industry and the Hashgraph ecosystem. Here's a disclaimer. We normally do a guest intro and have a little bit of a Q&A with our special guest. So unfortunately, like I've already said, we're going to have to skip past that section today and figure out what happened. But I'm going to start things off with the industry insights, Hedera highlights, social sizzlers, and our personal favorite every week is the hero of the week. So if this is your first time joining us, this is where you come to gain your DLT weekly insights, and we're going to be covering a lot of news. I'm going to, after the live stream, include all the links in the description below this video. If you're watching the recording, you're probably to see all those links there ready for you if you want to take a deeper dive into some of this content. This format allows us to highlight some of the information that's trending in social media and some of the big announcements that's been released in our industry. Okay, so to give you a quick, I guess I gotta pass through this slide here. So sorry, Sam, sorry, we're gonna have to jump on a call with you after the live stream. We do apologize about the technical snafu here, but we're gonna be covering these industry highlights quickly. YouGov's blockchain-based sell your own data platform makes no sense. Fed drags feet as digital money challenges central banks, and after Libra withdrawal, MasterCard outlines blockage partnership principles. We have a lot of information to cover today that was published about Hedera Hashgraph last week. So we're going to be covering these as well. And then our social sizzlers, which is typically the most popular tweet or post that we had, where we noticed our followers saw a lot of value in, and then they show that by their engagement. So we always typically have one or two posts that show a lot more engagement than the rest, which is a pretty clear message to us that that content is a lot more interesting, a lot more valuable. So let's start things off here with YouGov's blockchain-based sell your own data platform makes no sense. This is actually an interesting article, and I wanted to start things off with this one. Again, for anybody that wants to take a deeper dive into the content, please click on the link in the description below. If you're watching the recording, and if you're here joining us live, you can jump in the live chat, and Sharon will share your comments. Please ask questions and comment in some of the information that we're discussing today. This was an interesting article. I'm going to scroll down here and just touch on this section of the article here. How could data held in perpetuity on a decentralized blockchain possibly be GDPR compliant, given that one of the key elements of the new-ish EU regulation is the right to be forgotten? This is a really hot topic these days, GDPR, right to be forgotten. I know California, I think it's in January, it's going to be deploying their own version of GDPR. And it's a popular regulation that is expected to be spread out globally. And basically the article continues on saying that because personal data is not in fact held on their blockchain, instead he says the record shows only an encrypted ID value and the type of data used. So obviously their strategy that they decided upon to be GDPR compliant. This article asks a lot of tough questions. I highly recommend everybody to check it out. It's a great article. There was something else down here I wanted to. It questions semi-private blockchain model, the value of that. Basing the premise is where are you most comfortable placing your trust? Are you placing your trust in an entity, an enterprise, or the DLT model, the DLT algorithm on whatever platform that you deem to use. It's a really interesting article. So I would check this one out. And moving on, because we got a lot of information to cover today. We have this Bloomberg article, Fed drags feet as digital money challenges central banks. This article covers a lot of information. Talks about the G7. This was on Thursday. So this information, I believe, was released last week. Broad guideline, the G7 on Thursday will release broad guidelines for regulating digital money. They will also discuss whether central banks should issue their own. I'm going to scroll to the bottom here. There's a lot of great points in here. They talk about Libra, the Fed links, privacy outages, and I just wanted to highlight this. Adrian, the IMF, International Monetary Fund Director, says central bankers often argue from the status quo when it comes to digital currency, asking what problems are you trying to fix? Mainly, it's the payment needs are changing and legacy services are expensive and slow. Adrian said, as economists, we like innovation and we like competition, he said. That is the thing about innovation. I love this point. You don't quite know what it is going to be used for, Adrian said. Did we know we would come to rely so much on our smartphones when they were first introduced? So this article gets into a very deep conversation about basically the philosophy of all of these exponential technologies that we have seen introduced within, I would say, the last 10 years when blockchain first showed up on the scene. Because there's some very clear, hard questions that need to be asked. And a lot of regulators out there want these answers before moving forward with some of these technologies. Central banks worldwide, it actually does show, I guess if I wanted to quickly go back up here, yeah, central banks from Sweden to Canada and China are studying whether their money should have a digital counterpart. Sweden began an e-krona project in 2017 and has issued 2 reports on the topic. The Bank of Canada has launched a formal research project that has partnered with the other monetary authorities. So it's a very interesting subject. We live in very interesting times for anybody who's paying attention to the regulators and the law enforcement authorities, because there's a lot of issues around KYC, AML, and at the end of the day, the consumers, the various countries around the world are demanding that technology make our lives easier by improving transactions and reducing a lot of the inconsistencies, or I should say reducing a lot of the third-party intermediaries that slow the overall system down, make the system more expensive. And actually, touching on that point, there was one other thing. Right here. This is something else I want to highlight too. What does it say here? The first transactions are increasingly conducted online, and consumers and merchants want cheaper and faster payment systems. In the US today, payments travel through banks and credit card companies, and along the way there are fees and delays. Those costs cut particularly hard against gig workers, immigrants, and low-income people. So there's some, and actually moves on to saying the American payment system is a giant reverse Robin Hood, sucking billions of dollars out of the people who live paycheck to paycheck and depositing money in the form of credit card rewards to the already rich. So some pretty harsh claims here, but I think it would be difficult for anyone to argue against these points. The gig economy has obviously took off over the last, I'd say, 5 years, between drivers for Uber, Lyft, and the rideshare economy to Airbnb, people renting out sections of their house. And then when you think of every single transaction that takes place during those, it's got to be trillions of dollars worth of value that's transacted on a regular basis. And so this is where the DLT technology is promised to improve the system. It's a great article. I hope everyone gets a chance to take a look at that one. Here we go, another update regarding the Libra project. After Libra withdrawal, MasterCard outlines blockchain partnership principles. I thought this one was important to focus on as well, because here we have a payment company, one of the biggest names, if not the biggest name in payments. Obviously, MasterCard and Visa are the two big boys, and they what was it, just 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago, decided to opt out of the Libra Association. And it says here, the payments company stated that it sees potential in digital currencies to become trusted payment instruments for consumers and businesses. But for adoption, they need to offer stability, regulatory compliance, and consumer protection. The company says many digital currencies today fail to provide these guarantees. I love how they summarize these 3 points. These are the 3 points that MasterCard is clearly focused on. Consumer protection, number one, blockchain networks and cryptocurrencies must ensure privacy and security of consumers' data and transactions. Number two, level playing field. All stakeholders, including financial institutions, merchants, and mobile network operators must contribute and benefit from the blockchain network. And then finally, number three, regulatory compliance. And I think, geez, industry-wide, we've always said, especially from Hedera Hashgraph, we've always said regulatory compliance is the number one hurdle that we're all facing. If we had that regulatory clarity, this industry would be a lot further along. But regulatory compliance, blockchain networks, and cryptocurrencies should be fully compliant with laws and regulations set by a country. This includes anti-money laundering laws and integration into existing economic systems in the region in which they operate. Obviously, each government has the authority to govern their own populations. And it's not hard to assume that each government will have different views on how to govern their own populations. So clearly we are at a fork in the road, for lack of a better term, that there's these different technologies that are sort of rising to the top. And because each government will be governing their populations in slightly different ways, the technology needs to be able to allow for that. So, so lots of big news coming out these days, and it's important for everybody to keep a close eye on all these articles. Again, you'll find the links in the description below. So there's some of the industry highlights. We're going to move on here to some of the Hashgraph highlights. Lots of publications last week that were announced. Here's a great article, especially if you're brand new to the Hedera Hashgraph conversation, we're brand new to the DLT space. I love how this article breaks it up into simple terms, and it's very concise. What is a distributed ledger? How a distributed ledger works, blockchain versus Hashgraph, but then first dives into what blockchain technology ultimately is, and then the Hashgraph solution. With a faster, more secure, and trusted public ledger like Hashgraph, the future could advance distributed gaming, massive scale, artificial intelligence, IoT, and micropayments in new ways. I know a lot of us are very excited to learn about the impact that some of these technologies are going to bring, including micropayments. And I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong here, Sharon, did I just see Sam was able to join us? Or
it looks like we got Sam with us. Pretty exciting. Pretty exciting.
Right.
Glad to have him here.
Right on. Sam, I'm right in the middle of some industry highlights. Feel free to jump in. I'll probably wrap things up and then we'll transition over to you if that sounds okay. And I don't know if I got him here yet or not. I don't know. Sam, if you can hear me, maybe let me know that you've joined the call. Gotta love technology. You know it's a live stream when. Okay, I'll wait to see if I can hear him chime in. But I will move on, and for the interest of time, for everyone's viewing pleasure, we'll move on here and we can see if we can wrap up the news highlights, and then we can jump on with Sam. So moving on here, we got a couple Medium articles, the stability of Hedera Hashgraph. I love how this article summarizes the two fundamental differences between Hedera Hashgraph and other DLT platforms out there in the marketplace today. Hedera made very controversial statements in the early days when we first hit the scene. One of them being that we are offering, a guaranteed no forking solution. As we've outlined before, that in the early days, forking was used as a tool for the communities to overcome certain obstacles. But what we've witnessed in the last couple of years is that a fork will actually create a lot of chaos and uncertainty in the ecosystem, which has, in our view, has prevented mass adoption. Which is why massive enterprises we have not yet seen massive enterprises deploy their solutions on DLT, because it just doesn't make any sense to invest millions upon millions of dollars into a DApp, into a business solution, only to have a couple months later, or a couple years later, have your DApp fork off into a competing platform with competing cryptocurrency. That presents all kinds of problems related to taxes that we've discussed in the past, related to tangible assets, tokenization of tangible assets. and you can find a lot of information about that on our website. But I love how this article summarizes the stability of Hashgraph and singles out the technical side, which I'm sure developers who are working very hard to build business solutions on distributed applications will be interested in. And then, of course, on the legal side as well. They summarize it here with the fusion of technical and legal approaches will provide the governing council with the tools necessary to ensure network stability. By establishing these governance and defensive measures, Hedera will not inhibit creative freedoms on the platform, but will rather facilitate the broad-based adoption of this technology. That is the ultimate mission. Dr. Lehman Baird has famously, and I'm going to not get this quote perfect, but he's got a lot of amazing quotes out there. And one of his famous quotes is that he dreams, his vision is to have a world where anyone can carve out a piece of cyberspace and invite whoever they want into that section of cyberspace so you can play games, buy and sell goods and services, do whatever you like in a free way. And in a way that you can trust one another, even if you've never met, even if you're on the other sides of the globe. But so I love how this article summarizes in a very concise way the importance of having a stable network that does not fork. Moving on to another Medium article here, the better decentralized network Hedera Hashgraph case. Hey, Sam, welcome.
Oh man, I just gotta say, man, I'm in software, so I'm super tolerant to bugs. But wow, Zoom has really disappointed me today, and I've been using Zoom for years.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm really sorry to hear about the headaches.
Dude, it's not your fault. It was all Zoom's fault. I went through like 5 or 6 different things. I even tried the browser, and the browser sucked too.
Oh,
that's when you guys saw me pop in, was when I hopped on the browser instead of their app.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry to jump.
Hey, no, don't apologize. It's funny. Yeah, Sharon and I were just saying before the call started that we haven't come across this problem before. So you might be right. There might be a bug issue on the Zoom side. And I'm sure we'll have to, maybe we'll have to send an email and share our experience.
Glad to have you on, and we look forward to talking to you in a bit here. Excited.
Yeah, Sam.
Can you hear me?
Oh, there you go. I can see you. I can see you. I can hear you.
What's up, guys? How you doing?
We're doing great. We're doing great. You probably missed the first half here, but with your headaches. So what I'll probably end up doing is just wrapping up the industry news. Feel free to jump in if you've had a chance to take a look at some of these articles that were published last year, over the last week, and share your opinions too. But then we'll shift focus, and we'll certainly want to focus on your involvement in the community and talk about your project, right? So,
awesome. Well, go ahead, man.
Right on. Okay, so I just jumped onto this Medium article here. I love how this person actually highlighted, and I apologize, I'm not going to be able to say that name. Hedera Hashgraph, a fast, secure consensus network, highlights, I think it's 10 points here: governance operating model, fast consensus, security, operational transaction cost, low adoption complexity, support for micropayments, which we're all very excited about, multi-wallet support, promises of futuristic throughput. I mean, this is just too cool. The usage of gossip and virtual voting has the potential to push the limits beyond 100,000 transactions per second for inter-node communication, resulting in a new benchmark for distributed ledger. Something that I wanted to quickly touch on at this number 8 here is that Hedera Hashgraph, if you're brand new to this conversation, from the ground up has been designed with sharding in mind. So the idea is scaling will never be an issue. When the demand is there, Hedera Hashgraph will be able to meet that demand. Number 9 is use it as a secure digital vault, and then number 10 is smart contracts. This is a great list that someone put together that I just hadn't come across before, that the community put together here. It says here at the end, Hashgraph Network promises a new, fast, reliable, and cost-effective way of looking at new ideas in the crypto space, and will provide the stepping stone for enthusiasts to overcome the limitations of current blockchain technologies. We've been getting tons of feedback from developers since we've been releasing more and more information, and then even more so recently after we reached open access. So I know we're all very excited to see what developers are going to be doing over the next 12 months, because it's just amazing to see everything so far. Okay, so Dr. Lehman Baird is our co-founder and our chief scientist. He is also the inventor of the Hashgraph algorithm. And last week he joined this podcast called The Weekly Squeak. I thought they did a great job Dr. Lehman Baird is always a pleasure to listen to. He's a natural teacher for anyone who's seen any of his videos on YouTube or has had the pleasure to see him speak live. So highly suggest to check out this podcast. And I'm gonna have to, there we go. There we go. And then we also have Lehman, who participated in the Project Egg Show on this YouTube channel. Ben Gothard hosted the Project Egg Show. Ben did a great job. This is my first time actually checking out Ben's YouTube channel. He interviews some of the biggest names that are out there. Does a great job, and I loved his, and I can really respect his approach here with Dr. Lehman Baird, because he really kind of ignored, in a way, all the whole Hedera Hashgraph conversation and just focused on the man. And we are always thrilled to learn from Dr. Lehman Baird and our CEO Mance Harmon. They're exceptional people, and I always feel very fortunate and grateful to be on the team. But this interview seems to be following a more personal approach than all the other interviews I've seen with Lehman in the past. So highly recommend people to check out this interview, and more than happy to share the love and drive some people to Ben's YouTube channel. I think Ben does a lot of really great stuff. And then good timing, Sam, because now I can talk about this real briefly. So the Austin Tech Live YouTube channel here, they had a meetup recently in Austin, where our developer evangelist Cooper Kunz was there to give a presentation. And our guest today, Sam Ulrich, was there as well, CTO of Lone Star Data Technologies. And you guys did a great job. I don't know how big the crowd was there. I hope you guys had a good engagement there, but it was a great YouTube presentation too. And I was hoping to watch it live, but currently I'm located in the London, UK area, and I think it was like 1 o'clock in the morning for me, or 2 o'clock in the morning for me. But this was a great video, and I'm actually going to watch it again because Cooper is brilliant, and I always learned a lot from him.
Yeah, Cooper was cool to meet. It's funny, we were actually just talking with his brother Garrick, like literally the day before. So it's just weird to be talking with someone and the next day run into their brother like that.
So cool, right on. Yeah, they both work for Hedera Hashgraph. And I think Cooper loves to brag that he was with the team before Garrick.
Yeah, what's the probability, right? Plus they aren't even in the same division.
Exactly. And then this last YouTube video I want to highlight for everybody. I know everybody's favorite subject out there, KYC, know your customer, right? I'm sure nobody has any headaches with KYC. And this company, NetKey, know your customer for cryptocurrency companies. Their YouTube video here. They highlight the reasoning behind KYC, the need for KYC, because guess what? Fraud happens. And we had our VP of marketing, Andy Grant, actually join the presentation because we've been using NetKey to handle our KYC requirements. And so I wanted to highlight this presentation for everybody too. So right on. And then we're going to wrap things up here with this is what we like to call the social sizzler. Last week, this was by far the highest performing tweet that we shared with the community. The AdsDax platform, AdsDax platform, an advertising platform powered by distributed ledger technology, has passed a major milestone, executing over 10 million transactions on Hedera Hashgraph since the network opened access to its mainnet beta a month ago. So this is a huge milestone. AdsDax is a DApp that is, and here's the press release right here, is a very interesting use case, and they're just blowing up. Advertising is obviously a major industry, and unfortunately, the industry is full of fraud. Unfortunately, we are at the point now where advertising campaigns are in many cases producing inaccurate data for the company owner, the enterprise, the advertising firm, because we have the unfortunate position of bots now clicking on ads, and it wasn't a real person. So the clicks that you think you're getting wasn't a real person, wasn't actual engagement, and now we're dealing with these major headaches, and AdsDax has that solution. It says right here, AdsDax has been using Hedera Hashgraph to track and verify advertising events for large enterprises, as well as in executing real-time payments based on the data received since opening access of the Hedera mainnet. AdsDax has recorded over 103 million ad events, resulting in over 10 million HBAR payments. I had the pleasure of meeting Ian Mullins, the founder and CEO of AdsDax. Brilliant guy. He says here, this is a major milestone for both AdsDax and Hedera. Reaching over 10 million real payments is a massive success, but to do it so quickly showcases not only the potential of the Hashgraph technology, but also validates the speed, scalability, and robustness of the AdsDax platform to reinvent the ad industry. Hedera Hashgraph has proven it has the scale, speed, and reliability to handle the live advert tracking data that we have been handling in recent campaigns. This is very exciting. This is a very exciting use case to keep a close eye on. I know a lot of people in the advertising agency that are keeping a close eye on this particularly. Okay, so that is all the news that we can wrap up now. And where should stop sharing my screen here? And there we are. Hey Sam, how you doing?
How you doing?
Not too bad, not too bad. So we're going to shift gears here now. And so had a chance to share the news and some Hedera highlights. We're going to talk about our hero of the week later on, but we're going to shift gears and shift the focus onto you here. So why don't you start things off by sharing a little bit with the community about yourself, your background.
Okay. I shoot myself. I'm a self-taught programmer, I guess. I like to do my own thing. I got involved with Hashgraph back before it was Hedera, like way back. I was actually at a conference in Switzerland, and it was back when all it really was a patent and a white paper. And I was talking with this guy at this bar, and he just mentioned it. And I was like, why don't you tell me about that? And he started to mention some like stuff from the white paper. I was like, okay, I'll go look into it. So I looked into it and, you know, kind of like filed it away. And then a couple months later, I noticed that there was something going on in Dallas, or like that they had a meetup in Dallas. So I asked if I could do it. And then we actually got Mance and Lehman Baird out there, and that was cool to meet both of them. And we actually got them out a couple more times. And we got Ken out there at least once. And so it was cool. We got to meet everyone, and I just stuck around and do an event every once in a while. I haven't been doing as many events as I'd like to because, you know, I'm busy and all. But yeah, I've been involved with them for like, I don't know, probably about a year and a half now, 2 years. I don't know, time's weird and all.
Right on. Yeah, thanks for sharing. So this all stems back to having a beer at the bar.
Yeah, right. That's how it all goes. Yeah, and then we started this project. When we started the project, we just decided to do it on Hedera because, you know, it's the only, as far as I'm concerned, it's the only long-term option. Okay, I shouldn't say it's the only long-term option. For specifically what we're looking to do, it's the only long-term option that fit with us.
So tell us more about that, because what DApp are you working on? What project? I know I learned a little bit about your project on the YouTube video that we just discussed, but for those of those that are watching us right now that haven't come across you and doesn't know that much about your projects, why don't you share some more about that?
Well, so we provide distributed cybersecurity solutions for industrial control systems. It's kind of funny because that actually stemmed off of, originally it was role-based access control and identity authentication. And as we went down that road, we got involved with a couple companies that were involved in industrial control systems, largely in the oil and gas market. And they were just kind of like, yeah, you know, role-based access, that's cool. And they're like, but hey, if you could do these really specific things that we need over here, it could be really valuable for us. And so we were like, that's odd that they asked for it. And then we got asked for it again. So we're like, all right, well, I guess we'll build it. And so basically the general idea of what we provide is in a situation where my favorite one example is the Aurora generator hack. But basically, to break it down simply, imagine you got this generator running and these guys break into it because it's connected to the internet through these miscellaneous protocols, and they offset the relay time in it, and it ripped itself to shreds. And it was one of those things where everyone was surprised because this giant $500,000 generator is sitting here and it gets ripped to shreds by someone who's literally not even on site. And so they brought that up and they're like, hey, if you could protect against this, that'd be really valuable for us. And so we saw some real potential there, especially with Hedera for a plethora of reasons. But one of the most important parts we saw was the validated state proofs. And the concept is if they're going to be storing some sort of state variable, let's say the relay offset or a generator speed. Another example I like to use is, I believe it was in 2006, the US completely obliterated Iran's nuclear program. And we did that because they had these Siemens PLCs that were running the centrifuges, spinning the uranium down. And they essentially lifted the maximum speed cap and it ripped them to shreds. Similar concept. And so they were wanting to be able to validate these state variables that are really important, be it maximum speed, relay offset. There's so many and so many different specific situations, it's hard to even describe them all. But having those validated state proofs be able to show you, all right, well, this key set we can truthfully say, and I like Hedera because they always use the word truth, and I always think that that's a good marketing word, but B, it's something that's valuable. But you can trust that that's the truth. You can trust that this person signed this change with their key set and no one else did. And then that boils all of your concerns down to, okay, how do we protect the key set? And at least in my view, and I feel like a lot of people share this view, in cybersecurity, it's mitigating the areas in which you are vulnerable. So if you can siphon everyone, if you imagine a bunch of people charging at a city, if there's a big wall and one place that they can go through, everyone stacks the guards at that one place and they all have to funnel through there. A lot easier to control the flow and control the threat. If you don't have a wall and people can just run at your city, then you have to protect it everywhere. So this is our ability to kind of slowly shape these issues down to single points, choke points, I guess you could say, where we can kind of reinforce and control it.
Interesting. So yeah, you're controlling the access point and then reinforcing that access point. So you highlighted state proofs there, validated state proofs.
Yeah.
And you earlier you mentioned that that Hedera Hashgraph met your needs more than another DLT.
Oh yeah.
And could you talk a little bit more about those attributes?
Well, so we originally built on Ethereum because when we were building this, Hedera actually, they were like testing, but they didn't have a live beta. I guess they had a live beta for part of it, but not for a majority of it. And so we built on Ethereum, and the whole time we knew we were going to go to Hedera. So it didn't concern us, the speed limitations and whatnot. But at the end of the day, whenever we demo for a customer, we had to throw a million warnings out there like, hey, don't worry, we get it. This is painstakingly slow. It's not going to run like this in a production environment. Don't worry about it. And then as soon as we switched over to Hedera, it was like, man, it was like if you imagine you had a 200-pound weight vest on you and they just pulled it off, you just got to run free. All of a sudden, things were happening instantly. And that's what you really need. You need something that can happen instantly. One of the reasons the internet is so insecure is because there's a plethora of people all across the world that as it was building out, they were like, we could secure this, but we're going to have to work backwards. It's going to slow our time to production. We're going to have all these issues and we're going to have to face. Let's worry about the problem when it becomes a real problem and not a hypothetical problem. And so that was largely just because of one issue, speed. They wanted a product fast. They wanted it to work fast for customers. And now, if you think about it, when you go through your phone, when you click a button, most of the times, whether it be an app or whatever, you already know the next button you're going to click. It has to be fast. If it's even a split second slower, you'll notice, and that bothers you. So in our modern society, the concept that you're going to run something like Ethereum that takes a ridiculous amount of time for anything to come to consensus on is just not reasonable. And so Hedera's instantaneous speed really helped us, especially even just with demos with customers. We don't have to sit there and keep telling them and reassuring them, no, we promise it will be faster. No, they see it.
I like that parallel that you just drew there, because you're right. Sometimes they'll update the software and you're using the app so fast that your thumb goes somewhere and then you end up hitting the wrong button because they moved the button on you, or they changed what the button does. I know UX people and user interface people talk about this stuff in amazing detail, but that's a good parallel.
Yeah,
so
I mean, well, we just are so used to fast software. It's what we expect, and it only gets faster. The idea that in modern society we're going to accept slow software because it's more secure is entirely contradictory. I'm not quite sure the word I should replace, but it is completely out of line with our current progression and where society is headed, at least our interaction with technology.
Agreed. Yeah, I would agree with you on that one. Is out of curiosity, I would assume that finality comes into play. We've always said that we can reach finality between 3 and 5 seconds. Our metrics on our website right now has been showing our finality has been reaching at 1.9 seconds. So we've actually been able to demonstrate a better, quicker finality. I can assume that was a factor in you determining what DLT platform to use?
So that was nice. Don't get me wrong, I'm not discrediting it. And for specific applications that I'm sure we will encounter, it will actually be something that is a critical value. But right now, that has not specifically come up as a critical value because the majority of the finality aspects of it, they occur in timeframes that aren't sub-second sensitive. Now, actually having finality is cool. That is cool because, you never truly have finality with a lot of the other consensus algorithms. At the moment, it hasn't become a major issue, but like I said, in my opinion, it's quite cool. And I'm certain that at some point in the duration of our company, it will become something that we are happy to use, or we are proud to represent for Hedera.
No, it's interesting. I'm learning here right now too about your use case. So you care more about the speed, the trust that you highlighted, obviously, and the security side of things, the stability side of things. Okay.
Absolutely. And also the scalability. One of the first questions I ever had when I met Dr. Baird was about sharding. Because I mean, that's always been the big question ever since everyone realized, hey, okay, Ethereum 1.0 isn't going to work. Like this is only we're getting to a couple thousand people and things are starting to heat up. And, he brushed it off like it was nothing. And I was like, all right, well, one of two things. Either he's going to build it right and it's going to be nothing to them. It's just going to be something in the architecture that gets established early, or he doesn't realize the problem yet. And he definitely was more on he had already figured out that they were just going to build into the architecture, not worry about it. And when I first got on y'all's network, that was one of the first things that I noticed was that shards were literally built into it. I mean, they weren't being used, but right off the start, all of the addresses are indicative of shards. And I thought that was cool as well.
Exactly right. This technology has been built from the ground up with sharding in mind. The idea is scaling will never become an issue with Hedera Hashgraph. Clearly, different DLT platforms have different attributes, but that was one attribute that was of absolute paramount importance to us. Okay, so this is fascinating, and I'm already learning a lot more about your current situation on top of what I learned from you at the meetup there. I'm curious for the developers who are watching now, who don't happen to bump into some advice at a bar. How would you advise a young developer, any developer really, who wants to get into the DApp space? How would you advise them to start things off, start their career going?
Well, if they want to be super awesome, they can help contribute to the community SDKs because there's only like 2 or 3 of us that are really doing it, maybe 4 or 5. But that'd be really cool, especially because as soon as I did that, like I was working on the community SDKs a lot just because we built our whole code base not in Java. And we were like, oh shit, oh, sorry. I guess I probably can't say that.
You're good.
Oh, okay, cool. And we were like, well, we don't really want to rewrite a couple 100,000 lines of code in another language. So I guess it's going to be easier to work on the community SDKs, which wasn't an issue. But as Hedera scales, unless you guys specifically hire on a bunch of people to focus on each individual language, which probably isn't reasonable on y'all's end, I think it's a good place for people to start for both understanding how it all works together, because it really helped me understand how to interact with the network well. And then as well as that, it helps the community build onto it more. And it gives you more flexibility in the language of your choice. How does my product interact with HBAR? How does your product acquire it? How do you store it as needed? All right, that's actually a cool question. We thought about this one for a little bit. So interact with HBAR. Obviously, we have to use HBARs for the software to work or interact with the network. We actually have everything set up. There's a whole level of autonomous key management that we put a lot of thought into. And I don't really want to dive too deep into it for a number of reasons, but essentially there's a whole autonomous key management part of our software. And essentially what it does is it manages each individual or each asset. We like to refer to them as assets so as not to pigeonhole it into a specific thing. But each asset and each person on our software is assigned a key set. And those key sets are essentially set with amounts of HBAR that it should hold for any of the potential actions it can take. And it's essentially filled out of an account that we manually hold at the moment. We have ways to automate this that we've thought about, but at least for the moment, we want to make sure it's as secure as possible. And so we actually control the distribution manually, and we just have an alert system that says, hey, this account's running a little low. They might not be able to perform all the operations that could potentially occur in the next few minutes. You should update it. And then we'll personally execute it, move them funds over. Like I said, we have an autonomous system. We just haven't engaged it because, you know, at the end of the day, we want to control that flow. And people can only do so much damage as long as you control the flow of HBAR properly.
Right
Oh, and how do we acquire it? We just buy it like on exchanges. Hedera has been really cool about that. I will say for testnet, you can pretty much message Greg Scullard, and as long as like you aren't like being abusive about it, he'll just hand some on over on the testnet so you can use them. And then for actual production use, I am sure that if you have a legitimate use case and you are actively working on it, this is a me opinion, not a Hedera opinion, and you're actively working on your project, if you reach out to Hedera, I'm sure that they will accommodate you. They're great people. They want everyone to work on their platform. They aren't going to shower you in gold, but like, they'll make sure that you are able to interact with their platform and build your app the way that you need to. They're good company.
And Greg's okay. Greg's okay.
Yeah, Greg's all right,
I've had the pleasure of meeting Greg. He's awesome. And just to back up a little bit, if you are new to Hedera Hashgraph, you're a developer and you're thinking about that, join our Discord chat. That's where you're going to be able to engage with Greg and talk to other developers that are building on the testnet. That's where you're going to be able to gain some traction with other people in the community and some Hedera Hashgraph team members. So yeah, thanks for sharing that, Sam. Really appreciate that.
And definitely check out maybe working on the community SDKs. I'm telling you, it gets your better understanding and it makes all our lives a whole lot easier.
It's all about the community. It's all about the community.
All about the community. Well, you're going to love the community when you have a problem and you dump a huge log file into the chat and everyone's like, all right, fine, we'll take our time and help you out.
That's fantastic. So what is next for Lone Star? What is next for you guys?
Well, so at the moment, we have a couple companies that we're in talks with. We closed our first big deal, but I'm not quite sure what I'm allowed to talk about on that. So at the moment, because I haven't gone through everything that I'm not allowed to talk about, we closed our first big deal, and we got a couple more that are seriously interested. A couple we're in contract talks with at the moment. So at the moment, we just want to deliver on our promises. We're confident we can. But we had an influx of people when we kind of shifted gears to the industrial control systems setup as compared to the role-based access control. So at this point, we want to really deliver for these customers, and we want to really make them happy customers. And we're happy to open talks to other people if anyone's interested. But at least for the time being, delivering, executing, making everyone happy.
And talking about those conversations, how do people find you?
So truth be told, most of the people that we talk to that things are going quickly with as compared to your traditional 3-month sales process, like software sales process where you talk, you wait, you talk, you wait, the ones that actually accelerate in a relatively quick period of time, most of them are already looking for DLT solutions. And when we show up with our solution, the speed of it, powered by Hedera, the security that we can provide, and the specific, we really got lucky being told by a customer what their exact issue was, because we found that other companies have shared that issue. And so we really got lucky with that, and we really get to pursue that. So a lot of the companies are pretty excited to talk to us because they were looking for something, and we just kind of fell right in the right place at the right time. Our big goal is once we've got a couple companies under our belt, and once they're all happy and we can get some good testimonials and they're talking to their friends about us, we're hoping we can expand past people that were already looking into DLT technology and kind of show them, hey, we can do this really cool stuff. And we try not to advertise heavily on the DLT side of things. You know, we're happy to do things like this, but like one thing that our whole team has always been a little bit concerned about is that DLT companies tend to want to say, do this because DLT. And that's not normally how business decisions are made. I mean, truth be told, I don't really care about DLT unless it provides value for a problem I already have. And so we try to emphasize, look, we can solve your problem. And then if they ask why or how, or if they ask how, then we'll tell them, okay, well, we do this, and it includes DLT, and we run on a Hedera, yada, yada, yada. But we really try to focus on the problem as compared to just blurting out, hey, we do this on a DLT and you should give us money kind of a thing.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. Plus the other side of that too is you have these companies out there that want to build on DLT but don't even know why, because now it's a buzzword. So I hear what you're saying, and funny enough, in another life, I did work in the gas and oil industry, and in another life, I worked in the insurance industry. And I can only imagine what the insurance premiums are on a piece of $500,000 piece of equipment that you just talked about, ripping itself apart, and the amount of liability involved with the potential of someone getting hurt, the downtime that the enterprise is going to experience because that $500,000 piece of machinery is down. I can only imagine how many gas and oil and industry enterprises are going to be knocking down your door when you sort this solution out. So this is actually, I'm pumped for you. This is exciting.
Well, one thing Hedera helps us do, we really tried to focus on ourselves, but Hedera really helps us because Hedera is in a way this. We're pretty non-invasive, and we try to do that because, like you said, specifically in the worst case scenario where there's a malicious attack that puts that machine down, especially in oil and gas, normally that means lost money by the minute. Like actually by the minute you can break it down to this is how much it should be producing, and it's not. And even in some cases, God forbid it be on an like offshore rig and something breaks, this could go from something where it's like, okay, you're just losing money to now you're in front of Congress and now there's all these plethora of problems where the EPA is on you because you have a giant oil spill. And so we try to be non-invasive so they can test us in a controlled environment and see we aren't going to break things. There's another issue. Everyone's worried about breaking stuff. And Hedera does a good job allowing you to build into something instead of having to like tear it down to shreds and build with it and just kind of plug it in and play kind of a situation.
That's interesting. Thanks for sharing that. I actually haven't heard anyone share that perspective before. Looks like we got another question here for you from Brandon Snyder. So if a developer buys HBAR to run their DApp and then pays it back to the network as a fee, how is that token redistributed back into circulation and when? So if a developer buys, okay, so referring to you buying the HBAR and then you run the DApp, then you pay it back to the network as a fee.
If you hypothetically were to run a node and in the near future, they're going to release the open source software for running a node, you get paid to participate. You know, the incentive from Hedera is to let you interact with the network because they want more people, because the more decentralized, fundamentally, the more difficult it is for a malicious attacker to attack. And so by you running that node, you're paid because, you know, you have to turn your computer on, you have to pay electricity, you have to enable it to use computational power that you could otherwise be using for something else. So there's an opportunity cost there. And so you get paid for running that node. And if you run that node for a full day, you get paid at the end of the day, and that's how it gets redistributed. So truth be told, one thing I also like about Hedera, this actually brings me another point. You can run a node without totally ruining your life. Like running an Ethereum node is one of the most annoying things you're going to have to deal with. I don't remember what the full size of the chain is now, but I could look on my drive, but it's probably somewhere around 600 gigabytes. Might even be more, might be less. I'm not certain, but it's so much that it's just flipping ridiculous. Hedera is not like that. And as far as I'm aware, this is a me thing, not a Hedera thing. I don't think that you actually have to store a record unless you choose to as a mirror node. Yeah.
That's correct. Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought it up because I was just about to spin it in that way too, because you have the mirror nodes and then you have the full nodes. The difference is if you're watching this for the very first time, a full node will help the network come to a consensus, whereas a mirror node has nothing to do with consensus, but will store the data. And what I've been hearing from a lot of dApps, and I'm not sure if Lone Star would also be looking at this, is a lot of dApps out there would end up running their own mirror node to store that data. I'm assuming that would fall under your
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it's actually cool. I like that concept a lot as well, because one thing I liked about the whole Hedera algorithm, the whole Hashgraph algorithm as well, is it's a the consensus is based on mathematics. So like you don't actually, hypothetically, and like a lot of people won't necessarily want to do this, but hypothetically, as long as you have that consensus confirmation, that transaction receipt that shows that everything has come to consensus at a certain timestamp, if you're willing to trust just that, you can throw it away. You're good. Like that's the truth. It is what it is. That's why I like when they say truth and trust, because you can trust that that is the way it is. Now, people are going to want to save that. People are going to want to save that so at a later date they can show with like that this happened. But in theory, this is a way that you can run a network with real-time trust and not have to worry about backwards history unless you have a specific reason to. So I always thought that was pretty cool about it.
Yeah, it depends on the use cases. If you're an auditing company, clearly you need to store the history so that if and when you need to run an audit, you have the data there ready to rock and roll. But if you are because again, this ties back into finality, and if you reach finality, you don't necessarily need to keep this luggage, this ball, this huge burden. That's what the word I was looking for. This huge burden, like you were saying, of running a node on another network. You're carrying this huge burden with you wherever you go. Where we're a fundamental shift. We're a completely different animal. Hedera Hashgraph does not do that. We reach finality, so you don't need to carry around this massive burden, this entire transaction history from the very beginning, if you don't need to. And then if there is a business use case for that, we think lots of businesses out there are going to want mirror nodes because they're going to be able to sell their services by keeping a track record of this burden. They're going to store it for you. Yeah.
I have a question actually. There's hypothetically, I don't think you guys have worked on it, but there's the concept of like a light node, right? Like in the sense that like a full node, right? At least as far as I'm aware, a full node would have to maintain files and contracts, because you as the whole network have to execute a contract function for the smart contract service to work, and you'd have to hold the files on there for you to hold the bytecode to execute it in the EVM. So you would hypothetically have to contain some of that. But if I remember correctly, and this could be totally just me misremembering, remember there possibly being a concept of a light node where you don't actually execute smart contracts and whatnot. That could be what inevitably turned into the mirror node, where it's just you're reading constantly. But I'm not quite sure. I wasn't sure if you knew about that or if you had heard about it.
I haven't come across anything from Hedera Hashgraph that's that would be considered a light node, but ultimately those kinds of decisions is where we have the governing council. So when all of a sudden a need crops up out of nowhere that nobody could anticipate, the whole point of having a governing council that everyone trusts, because they're distributed across industries, they're distributed globally, they're distributed across time. They are the ones that will be ultimately making those kinds of decisions, so that the network is as secure and as stable as possible. But to my knowledge, the full node and mirror nodes are the only options for us. But that's interesting. Yeah, I haven't come across anything from light nodes. So yeah.
It totally could be either a mismemory or it could have been the preface for what eventually turned into the mirror node. When I was where this thought spawns from was probably about 1.5 years ago at like a meetup. So could it be that? It's definitely not that fresh.
Gotcha. Yeah, you're clearly not new to the conversation. Like you said, you you've been following this project since before the Hedera project was announced. So yeah.
Yeah, actually, I think it might have even been a full year before that. I don't know. You know, time's weird and all.
Right on. So before we wrap things up, I should ask Sharon if she's got some more questions from us from the live chat. I can't see the chat on my screen, but it looks like Sharon's already passed along.
Yeah, no, we passed along the key questions, and thanks so much
Perfect.
for the community for asking them. And Sam, great questions. Thanks for answering those. Seems like you got a lot of fans out there in the live stream. So thanks for
Really?
joining us.
I'm gonna
Oh
look.
yeah, you got some fans, new fans out there. Thank you.
I'm gonna go look. I appreciate that.
And
Yeah.
and
Cool and
before we
smart.
And before we wrap things up, I can't recall now, how do people reach you? How do people contact you if they need some more information, or if, you know what, they have a 500,000 piece of machinery?
Right. You guys gotta forgive me, right? I know that there's a beautiful science to front-end development, and I know that some people are just downright artists. I'm not. I'm a back-end guy. I like making stuff work, not making it pretty. So we have other people doing our website, and at the moment, I think our front page just went up, and I think more is going to be coming over the course of the next week. It's lonestardata.io. Again, I apologize. I'm just really bad at front end, mostly because at the end of the day, I'm not a pretty guy. I'm a make it work kind of guy. So yeah, definitely shout out to all those wonderful developers out there that go through the trouble to make it artsy and beautiful and function right. There's a special place in heaven for all of you guys.
Okay, so as of right now, lonestardata.io, and just whenever that is finalized, that process, please shoot me the email or the link or whatever. And what I'll do for you is I'll add it to the description to this YouTube video, and then we'll make sure people know where they can track you down, where they can find you.
Hold up. We got one more question from
Yep,
Sharon.
one more question. Thank you so much.
All right, so I actually like this question a lot. Are you seeing many other devs in the community come online with Hedera? Yes, but the critical part is, like I will refer back, please help with the community SDKs. Almost everyone that is not specifically working, like they did not start their project with the intention of working with Hedera, or did not spend their life prior to Hedera working with Java, comes on and gets smacked in the face when they realize that, okay, the only official support is Java. And it's not that Java is a bad language. I like Java, but at the end of the day, it's not my pick for pretty much anything. I know it has value, but I'm not an Android guy, and there's plethora of other languages. So if you're coming on, you know, check out working on the SDKs. I know it's intimidating at first. I know it's poorly documented. I'm sorry. I really didn't take the time. No one else did. But you tinker away on it, you get an idea on how the network works, and it helps everyone come on and have a nice, smooth transition, because it seems like every day more people are coming on and more people are kind of getting smacked in the face going, wait, I don't have my language that I like to work with. I don't have support for it. Or if I do, it's poorly documented. Again, I apologize. It's me and a couple other guys. But if you want, especially if you want to help with documentation, if you just want to go in there, poke around and write it down, that would be absolutely prime. That'd be the best thing you can do. And then, how also HBAR question, does price at all enter into your use equation? It absolutely does. It is such a big deal. That's one thing I do like about Hedera is their price structure is in USD. And this seems like a miniature kind of thing, but it matters, because I can say that this is always going to cost this much USD regardless of the HBAR price. And that's a super critical question to be bringing up, or a super critical thing in my use case, because these companies, they don't want to worry about it fluctuating in real time. They want to see it work. They want to know how much it costs. No, nothing else. And consensus as a service is another part to that, especially because consensus as a service, when it comes out, will be a wonderful addition that enables you to use all the things that were going to cost you a cent or more to do at, I think it's 100th of a cent or something like that. Like the crypto, it goes from smart contract costs to cryptocurrency costs. And that is critical, because when you do these things at scale, the real value in Hedera is at scale. If you're only going to do one transaction every 5 minutes, you might as well use Ethereum. There's some advantages to Hedera, but like, at least in my view, the immediate value that you get is that you can do it with trust, you can do it at scale, and you can do it fast. And so if you're going to be doing a couple hundred transactions every second or every couple seconds, Hedera is the only real choice that you can do where you can get all the value at. And at that point, the cost really starts adding up if you're running on a smart contract. And so bringing that cost down more and more and more to where you can still get that level of trust and throughput, but not have to pay ridiculous sums of money to actually get true consensus. That really makes a difference. That also means that's only if you're, I guess, posting is a good way to do it, altering the state of the ledger. If you're just querying the state of the ledger, it's pretty cheap and it's pretty easy to do. But if you're going to be consistently like logging data or like updating a state variable or something like that, then yeah, consensus as a service is going to blow your mind.
Yeah, I can tell you we are all very excited about HCS. So thanks for that feedback. Excuse me. I hope there's some developers watching right now because I'm sure a lot of them have been weighing out the pros and cons and how to figure out their business use case. And that's important. You're right. It's a huge important factor of how people are going to be planning the cash flow of their DApp, their business. So it's a really good point. Okay, so I think that's it from Sharon from the live chat. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to share my screen here again, and we're going to wrap things up with our favorite part of our weekly live stream. We would like to congratulate Danny from Dubai. Danny, our hero of the week. Thank you, brother. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Telegram chat, Danny, I've noticed you have been providing all kinds of value to the community. You were sharing all kinds of insights that really impressed me. And I thought, you know what, we need to make Danny the hero of the week. And he's also very active in other social channels like YouTube and whatnot. And it's just a small appreciation from us to you for the value that you bring to the community. We're still very much in early days. DLT is brand new and everybody's learning. And it's important that we support one another because there's a steep learning curve for all of us. So Danny, reach out to me if you see this, or I'll be pinging you shortly after the live stream, and I'll get you a discount code for the Hedera store, and then we'll go from there. But super excited to show our appreciation to you.
Hey, Andrew, I think we have another celebration. Wasn't it your birthday yesterday? Huh?
Hey, happy birthday!
Happy birthday, everyone! Wish Andrew a happy birthday. Woohoo!
Yeah, it was my birthday. Thanks, Sharon. Thank you for that.
How old are you now?
37. Big 37.
That's a pretty big one right there. And again, big there.
Oh, I'm ancient in the DLT space. Ancient.
Man, you got 3 years till you're 40.
Yeah, the big 4. I'm excited.
You gonna go jump out of a plane or something?
I'll probably go diving. I'm a diver, so I'll probably go scuba diving.
All right.
So really quickly to wrap things up for everybody, we got the Hedera status Twitter account for any developer out there that wants to have the most up-to-date information on the network. Highly recommend that if you're on Twitter to share this account, or excuse me, follow this account. But then we also have the Hedera status page as well. And I can share both links in the description below here, below this video, so that you can keep up to date with all of that. But last but not least, smash that like button. If you like us doing these weekly live streams for you, we have a lot of fun doing this. Leave a comment in the comment section if you have a question, or if you want to make some suggestions or recommendations on who you would like to see on Forkless Cafe. I'm going to stop sharing and just quickly thank Sam. Can't thank you enough. Again, apologies about the technical glitches, but hey, that's what you get.
I'm blaming Zoom, man.
That's how it goes. That's how, the community has to know that this is live for these kinds of things to happen. But we really appreciate everybody watching here, and we'll see you guys next Tuesday. It won't be Monday again. It'll be next Tuesday again for those of you who look out for our weekly live streams, and then we'll go back to Mondays after that. But thanks again, everybody, and take care.
Bye-bye.